We all understand the pressures of climate change. We know we need to do something about it. Africa presents a real opportunity to leapfrog a whole generation of technologies which have served the West very well, it's already serving Asia very well, but perhaps do not need to be deployed again in Africa.
There's a growing need for energy in Africa, and it will not be possible to satisfy this need by only conventional power plants, and therefore it is necessary to invest into renewable energy.
Improving that renewable technology allows us to deliver power and thereby deliver education and health services and all of those things to people who wouldn't otherwise have it if we relied purely on fossil fuels.
Particularly in Africa, where you're starting from such a different place, it's not about substitution, it's about more capacity, and the more capacity there is, the more that will be provided by renewables.
The diversity of scale, I think, is one of the really interesting things about the African market, and for us, it's actually quite a challenge.
Somewhere there's the right size. It's not minuscule, but the good thing is it doesn't have to be huge either. You know, it's sort of probably something in the sort of 50 to 150 megawatt range is actually quite a good size to do things.
So you really have to get your head around the sort of Uber scale projects, but also how can you do the smaller projects on an efficient basis, so you're really adding value.
One of the most interesting findings of the report is actually that renewables are already cost competitive with fossil fuels in a number of asset classes, but also that we're starting to see signals that African development may even be powered by renewables.
There needs to be a bit of help for governments in terms of bringing the international investor community to the table, creating the supply chain, and South Africa have done that very, very effectively with their renewable program that we helped with.
And I think the South African Renewable Energy program was probably the biggest impetus to get the market moving, in the sense that there was 4,000 or 5,000 megawatts of opportunities available for people who had previously been doing deals in highly subsidized markets.
I think Africa's at an interesting point because there is now much more of a track record of investment into green and low carbon energy in Africa.
And this is what our clients want to know. They want to know whether the kinds of investment decisions that they are being asked to make about, are we going to invest in a gas-fired plant or are we going to look at a solar opportunity? It's no longer this thing where you necessarily need to rely upon subsidies, be that from international climate finance or domestically.
We've been right at the forefront of the development of renewables worldwide. Africa has been a key focus for the firm.
We've been working on transactions in Africa for more than 20 years, and I think our experience both of the kind of investment environment, of the broader political context and around renewable energy, bringing the expertise that we have globally, experience in Europe, in Asia, to renewables deployment in Africa, I think that combination is very powerful.
We're uniquely lucky to have both Francophone, Anglophone and Lusophone Africa-facing practices within our global network, so we really can cover the continent.
Our experience on a range of projects all around the world really has been to develop balanced approaches so that the IFI gets comfortable in terms of the diligence that it's seen as to the robustness of the project and how it manages risk. But at the same time, the project is protected from having hair trigger issues coming up through their covenant package.
We're here to help our clients reduce risk. And climate change throws off risk for our clients in a whole host of ways, from regulatory risk to very practical, on-the-ground, real-world risks.
There are basic structural challenges of doing deals in a lot of African countries. So you've got things like government credit risk, you've got political risks, you've got FX issues, you've got access to hard currency issues. Those are things that have always challenged investors in many countries in Africa, not all countries, but many countries in Africa.
If you're going into an African jurisdiction and you're investing, you want to be comfortable that your investment is a good investment and that your return is going to be trustworthy and robust. So you want to be satisfied that the way in which the business is running is such that it meets international good practice. Indeed, it may be a requirement of your financing that you can satisfy the lenders, and those might be international financial institutions or they may be commercial banks, but they will want to be satisfied going in that you have adequate procedures, and they will want you to covenant on an ongoing basis that you're compliant as regards their key areas of concern, and those are going to be social and environmental, but they'll also go to corruption and other regulatory risks.
I think people will be surprised that, that the costs are approaching parity at such a fast pace. I think there's been a real attitude in the investment community, but also in the policy makers' point of view, which is that development in Africa really relies upon fast deployment of fossil fuels. And I think what this shows is that you don't have to have this kind of choice of development or environment. You can have both, and you can have both a lot quicker than we had previously thought.
We like to be involved right across the piece. The way we approach the sector is very much that the lawyers involved should know everything that a person working in that sector would need to know about the asset. So rather than dividing up the world on legal lines, we divide it up the way our clients look at the world and trying to put lawyers into play who understand everything that is relevant to their client's business.
Well, I think that talking about future, you can distinguish between the short term, the medium term and the long term. I think renewables in the short term or medium term, there are opportunities there in the hydro sector traditionally, but we are seeing also increasing opportunities in the wind and solar.
I think that what is changing is there is a recognition, an increasing recognition of the imperative to achieve some sort of consensus, and that consensus needs to involve action not just by one or two parts of the regions of the global economy, but actually a concerted action by everybody, which will reap benefits for all.